I haven't done a video in too long. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been 3 weeks since I've actually posted a legit video, and that is way too long. And I should be posting more because it's the summer and I'm unemployed. Actually, I'm not really unemployed, but you get the point. So anyways, if you read the title, you know what today's video is about, which you probably did. So I think this was like pretty popular a few years ago, or maybe it's still popular, I don't know. And basically you put an egg and then you put it in a cup of vinegar. I had no idea, I suppose. Get the point. And then it becomes squishy. And since this is a very educational channel, trust, I'm going to explain the science behind it, and I'm going to show you the result of my actual experiment. I would show you some pictures of during the experiment, but I decided to be lazy and not take pictures and videos of it, so you're just getting the final result. Anyways, science. An experiment consists of multiple parts. Question. What is this? Research. Hypothesis. Materials and methods. Experimente. Data. Resulte. There's not any. And then conclusion. That's beautiful. So now let's break it down. The question is in the form of what is the effect of independent variable on dependent variable. The independent variable is the thing that you change or manipulate. Yeah. And then the dependent variable is the thing that you see or like measure at the end of your experiment. And then you're gonna do some research, like watching a bunch of brain rot videos about it, or asking Gemini. Yeah. And then we have the hypothesis, which is a guess, specifically an educated guess, because you did your research. Yeah. And then we have materials and method. Basically, you list your materials and methods for your experiment. And then you actually do the experiment. I know, so fun. And then data is the things that you write down and like analyze later on. And in result, you analyze it, and the conclusion, you actually like summarize everything that you did and the conclusion you get. For example, after I did this experiment, I realized that the effect of the independent variable on the dependent variable is, or something like that. And then you like summarize it. For example, let's do it in our experiment. So the question in our experiment will be, what is the effect of vinegar on the egg? Okay, and then the research I did was using Gemini and brain rot videos. I don't know why I had to say that twice. And hypothesis is, my hypothesis was that if the egg will be submerged into the vinegar, then the egg will become squishy. And then the materials and methods. Materials include cup, vinegar. I use white vinegar for this. I don't know if it works with like the brownish vinegar. I don't know if it works, but it probably works. Anyways. And the actual egg. And then optional, but I used it, is a bunch of stuff to cover my experiment, because if I don't cover it, my mom will probably throw it away and then lecture me about it. But if she doesn't watch this video, I won't get lectured. And she never watches my videos. So yay. And then experiment, which is the thing I actually did. And then the data I collected is that it became squishy, or maybe not, wink wink. And then the result is a thing, result. And this is getting boring. Okay, let's just get into the sciencey stuff, bro. Okay, let's get into the sciencey stuff. beautiful, beautiful. My back. Okay, so first of all, we need to know what vinegar and the egg is made of. So vinegar is 95% water, and then 5% acetic acid. And you might be asking, what is acetic acid? So acetic is a polynomial, which literally is like a bunch of elements smushed together, but it has a charge, and it's not really, So that is, acetate by itself is C2H3O2 minus. But since it's acetic acid, and acids are made by adding a certain amount of hydrogens to an ion, then so we're gonna get C2H3O2. So that vinegar is made of 5% of that. Okay, and then the eggshell. The eggshell is made up of something called calcium carbonate, CO3. And then we know that, oh my God, can you shut up? Stop. Thank you. Whatever. So calcium is a group 1 ion, which means it has a +1 charge. And the carbonate has a -1 ion. So that's why it bonds like that. Okay? So what happens here is that the calcium carbonate reacts with the acetic acid. I don't know why, but acetic acid, it has another weird way of writing, which is CH3COO. And that's just weird. I don't know why anyone would use that. It's just confusing and looks weird. So I use this. Both are technically correct, but who cares? And then, anyways, so this calcium carbonate reacts with the acetic acid, making calcium acetate and water and CO2. Okay? CO2. Yeah. So the question is, why doesn't, if there is like this chemical reaction where it kind of like dissolves the eggshell, so why isn't it just like an empty egg with like a yolk, or something like that? It's because between the eggshell and then the actual like yolk and like the white stuff, I don't know what you call that, there's a very thin membrane between it, and it is made of 2 protein layers, and it is kind of like our cell membrane. It is semi-permeable. It has like really tiny like pores which allow smaller like molecules to go through, but not like big molecules like acetic acid. So it has like a very thin cell membrane around the liquidy stuff, and then the membrane is kind of stretchy, so that's what makes the egg seem squishy. I think that makes sense. Yeah. And then you may be asking, okay, and maybe the H2O is gonna get kind of like mixed, like the H2O and the CO2. The CO2 is probably just like in the air somewhere, and then the water is still in the cup. But what is this calcium acetate? Where is that? It is a like kind of powdery substance that you see floating around in the cup. I wish I could show you, but I was too lazy to record the thing that I was doing. Okay? And then this is actually very soluble. And I'm not gonna go into really depth of solubility. It's basically like in a chemical or equation, there's actually supposed to be states of matter here. So calcium carbonate is solid, acetate is liquid, and this is aqueous, this is liquid, this is gas. So there's actually, in a correct chemical equation, it should first be balanced and you should have states of matter. So there's solid, liquid, gas. Of course, we know that. And then we have something called aqueous, which is basically it is dissolved kind of like in the water, you know? And then we have a ginormous chart which shows if something is soluble or not. And then I had to memorize this. But if you guys feel really unemployed, you can also memorize it. But yeah, it's here. And then as you can see, in this calcium acetate, we have calcium and acetate, which are both soluble. So that makes this substance very soluble. So now that we have done our research, now let's go ahead and look at the final result. And I am not showing you right here in my bedroom because it is way too preppy and it's gonna smell like vinegar and I don't like that. So let's make editing Aaron go to downstairs. Okay, boom. That was the uncleanest transition ever. I don't know, like, should I call it a dirty transition? I don't know. So when I was trying to set up this camera, I don't have a tripod, obviously. So I have this set up on a paper towel rack. And then when I was trying to set up some salad dressing kind of got on a fan. Pretty sweet. So you know where this goes, the microwave. Yeah. So anyways, we're here to show the egg, which also got some salad dressing on it. I put it in a Ziploc bag because it's kind of crusty. Ooh, look at that. So as we can see like the cell membrane, and then I let this simmer in the vinegar for like around 1 or 2 days. And so now it's squishy. Yeah, you can see the membrane and like the shell is basically like completely gone. I don't have footage of me during the actual experiment, but I can tell you what I saw. So it's so uncomfortable because the camera setup's so low. They don't feel that. Anyways, I saw this like kind of like crusty, skinish thing that kind of like fell off the actual shell, and then there was like a bunch of like powdery stuff on the actual egg, and then but when I like touched it, it kind of just like went away. So I just like scrubbed it lightly for like a few seconds, and now it's beautiful. So I'm not quite sure, but maybe that powdery stuff was the calcium acetate. So anyways, look, so many medals. I'm such a winner. Anyways, so yeah, so we have a squishy egg, and then as we know in our experiments, we need to have we have an experimental group, and we have to have a control group, which is basically like something like an egg in the controlled normal environment, so we can compare. Okay, so let me go grab it. There's our control group. I got it from Costco. And he also came from Costco too. So I think we can compare. I think it might have enlarged a little bit. I'm not quite sure, but as you can see, this is not squishy and it has a very hard shell. ASMR. It reminds me of a certain classmate. Anyways, so as you can see, it's hard, and this one's a tad bit larger and this one's squishy. You can see the color difference. This one's brown, this one's like kind of white peachish. So like, yeah, that's the experiment. Hope y'all enjoyed. Yeah, this is bloopers. I need to get the fan out of the microwave. Let's throw this away.